Good evening and welcome to NUITEQ Snowflake's latest in the series of Snowflake Live webinars. Tonight, Danielle Macklin will be talking to you about supporting differentiation while using Snow.live. I would like to welcome Danielle Macklin to the stage now. Hi, Danielle.
Hi, Jack. Hi, everyone. Thank you again for coming and joining us. We really do enjoy putting on these webinars, and it's nice to see so many new people joining as well as so many people who have been with us from the beginning. So today, like Jack was saying, I'm going to talk a little bit about how to use Snow.live as a platform to help with differentiation for your instruction, as well as how to use some of the built-in scaffolds to help your students. So I'm going to start with sharing my screen. And I'm going to first speak of how to differentiate some of the lesson activities. And I went to the Explore page. So this would be where you can find our lessons in the Snowflake community. And from there, I just did a quick search for math lessons. And I'm going to grab one and then edit this particular lesson. So one of the great things with the software is any lesson that is saved within the community, once you play that lesson, you also have the ability to edit any of the content in it. And it's only going to edit on your dashboard. It's not going to edit in the community itself. So it's just whatever you change and alter. So for this particular lesson activity, it is a quiz lesson activity type. So it is with multiplication. We have 15 questions addressing Common Core standards for grade 3. So one way that I would use this lesson activity in my class is I could obviously assign it as is, and it would be that on-level assessment. So students would read the multiplication fact, select the answer, and here you can see to select the answer, they simply flip over the card if it's correct or incorrect. To provide a little differentiation, though, I can also add in more answers. So since I'm working on my laptop, I simply hit the enter key, the return key, and I was able to get a new column here. It's the same as if you were to select the create answer option. You would just then move that into the space provided. So maybe I want to make this lesson activity a little bit more challenging, adding more answer capabilities and options. So now instead of the original 3 questions, students have 5 that they would need to choose from to select the correct answers. With my customized content, I can then go back if I wanted to edit the answers themselves, which in this case it's math, I wouldn't need to, but I could do that. I also have the ability to remove parts of this. So this one is a 15-question quiz lesson activity. I might decide with my students that 15 questions would be too much for them at the time, so I can simply remove questions, or I could even create my own questions. So I could add in my own question. So what is 3 times, we're going to do for the first one 4, so let's do 3, 5. And then I could add in my answers. Other options that I have, I can also add different backgrounds. So if this were perhaps not a multiplication quiz, maybe this was something related to vocabulary, or it was something where I wanted to have a bigger visual, I can change the background to an image. I can search an image from my computer. I could do a basic image search, which I'll show in a moment, or I could pull in things from my OneDrive, Google Drive, as well as from our content gallery, where we do have pre-made pictures and graphics and backgrounds loaded. So I'm going to do just an image search. When I select the image search, it's going to pull up a search for whatever the text was in my answer space. So in this case, my answer space had the number 15. It's going to pull up pictures that have the number 15 on it. So I'll select one. I could also create my own custom graphics to change that. And now we see there's the picture in the card a little bit bigger. I also could record sound. So this would be really great to use for students who perhaps are your ELL students or ESL students. Having that extra audio component would help them with deciphering what's written on the card as well. I also can change my font size. So we see here the font's kind of small. I can increase that to a larger size to help meet the needs of students who have specific visual needs and might need that a little bit larger, as well as changing the font type itself. So if I take this one lesson, I have a lesson that was created for an on-level task, meeting the standard. But I could also add additional materials such as a YouTube video. So in this case, I would look for maybe the 3 times tables. I always do for kids or for students whenever I do a search for a YouTube video. I feel that it filters out the content a little bit better. I mean, I don't have to worry as much about searching through a huge list of things. So here we have a couple different videos. Grab this little guy. So adding this video in would be really beneficial for students who might need a little extra time in learning the concept. So perhaps this is something you've covered in your class. You've already done the direct instruction teaching component of how do you find your 3 multiplication tables. Including the video is going to give that extra reinforcement for students. So I'm just going to have the video start about 5 seconds in. And maybe I only need the first minute of that video. With this, I have the option to have the video play at the beginning. So now when my students play this lesson activity, they'll have the video play before the instruction. This is really great, especially now that we're kind of in that remote learning or at-home learning or whatever we want to have, distance learning. Now we have this ability to have our videos included in the instruction. So as a lot of our teachers are creating their own lessons for their kiddos and actually recording themselves teaching and then delivering that video via maybe your Google Classroom, this is a way to incorporate that video into a lesson activity. So then you can test those skills and check for understanding after students have watched the video. The great thing with it also is students can control the pacing of the video. So if my student is watching and taking notes, it's a really great little song, they can pause at any point that they need to go back and maybe write additional notes or double check their work just to have that extra time to process it. So they have the ability to pause it. They also can control closed captioning. So I have that toggled on. I can switch that off, but I have that video available to me. And then I can go through and play the lesson activity. If at any point my student needed to check that video again, they can watch the video again, even though they watched it the first time and they wanted to go back and see it again. They can select the little I for more information and then view the video again. So they can have that preview of the video one more time as they're completing the lesson activity. Once I'm happy with the lessons that I've created, so let's say I had my original on-level task, and then I made a copy of the lesson activity and added my differentiation to it, I can then send that lesson activity to my students. I'm going to go back to my edit option. And as I send to my students, I can select which students I want to send the lesson activity to. So in my Snowflake test class, I have 4 students. I can differentiate my instruction by sending that activity to different students so that it would be meeting their particular needs. And then I can send the same activity with the modifications to another set of students. This particular lesson activity, being a quiz, is one of our gradable assessments. So I can select that option to have my students complete the activity, and then they would receive a graded score. If I don't select it, they have the opportunity to play the lesson activity multiple times. I can still have the due date, so I can say you need to have this done by Thursday, but they could do it multiple times to reinforce those skills. And then I can always resend it as a gradable assessment to get that raw data score. And then from my classes, I can see, I'm not going to send this because I've already overloaded those poor students with activities. From my review progress, I can then see how my students have performed on those lesson activities. And this would be really great for me to be able to go back and see which questions were they struggling with, which questions did they breeze right through, and I know that I don't need to go back and reteach, versus the ones that maybe I need to spend more time with. So I'm going to use my Snow.Live distance learning class, and I can see this one. So these are lesson activities that have already been completed. I can see that my student opened the activity, and then when I select the student's name, and I only sent this to one particular student, so I'm only seeing the one name. I can see which answers were correct and incorrect, their correct answers out of the total, their percentage score, and I also have the opportunity to provide feedback. So there's old feedback that I've added. I can go and I can edit that feedback as well. When I add feedback and I save that, my student will receive a notification. Oh, I think I froze. There we go. So the same icon I have here, my student will receive that notification that their teacher has sent them a message. And then one of our newer features is the ability to export all of that data result. So that was a real quick one on how to differentiate lessons just within the community. But I also want to share with you how to take some of those lesson activities and scaffold and build in those supports so that you can teach an entire standard through a set of lessons. So I found standards aligned with the UK, but they matched a lot of Common Core standards as well, related to the ability to tell time. And when I was looking at the standard, I realized that it had 3 main components to it, and there's no way I could teach all of that in just one particular activity. So I broke it down, I unpacked the standard into the 3 main pieces of it. One of them was the ability to read and write time, so being able to look at a clock and identify the time. The other was the ability to take analog clocks, match it to digital time. And then the third part was converting 12 to 24-hour time. So in these 3 lessons, I created, using just the same graphics for all of them, which was really easy, I created 3 activities to address the components of those standards. And then for my students, I took those lesson activities and I added them to a list. So when we create a list, it's like a playlist. I use the More Options button, and I select Add to List, and then I'll see all of the lists that I've created. See, this one is already in my telling time list, or I can create a new one from scratch here. Your lists are then found under your lesson activities, under lists. So you can see some old lists that I've created. And I added within this list a PDF. So then my students would have the ability, this particular PDF is going to provide more instruction of how do you convert 12 to 24-hour time. So now they have that extra information of this is how you do it, this is what it means, here's all the ways to do it, here's some examples of it as they practice before the next lesson activity. Go back to my list. So then I can take that list, and just as I can differentiate which lessons I sent to students, I can also send my list to students. So I can then send that to my students. So I'll send to my distance learning class. I can assign the due date. And then now my student would be able to complete all the activities within that list. And as the list plays, I'll go back to show you what it would look like from a student perspective. Now, as a teacher, I have the ability to skip through. When I play as a student, though, it's going to play in that order. I can see out of my 4 lesson activities, I'm on the first one. So here they would have to order the clocks. The next activity, which I think this one makes me complete it, they have to match the time. So, and the pictures that I'm using in the background are just quick little images that I did on Google Drawings and then just saved it as a JPEG. So that's another feature that you can have to add that added support, is being able to add your own pictures in the background. And then there's the PDF. And then the last lesson activity would be the tags lesson. So with this particular lesson, I sent this as a list. Here we go. I could then also have changed this particular graphic. So I could change this for students with, maybe I wanted it just 4 of the images instead. I could edit the text here, so I can alter it for the needs of different students, and then still send a different list to a different set of students. Let me go back to my lesson activities. Another way to kind of organize and I'm giving you a lot, so if at any point you have questions, please just send them over to Jack and he'll stop me because I'm showing a lot right now. Another way that you can differentiate some of your instruction too, and just keep it in an organized format so you know which ones you want to send to students, is through the groups feature. So groups are collaborative spaces, so you would have space for yourself as well as your colleagues. If your students have email, you can add your students to the group. So right now it's just me and me in my particular group, and I have different lesson activities that I've added in. My other colleague, the other Danielle, could also add lesson activities to this group, and then we can send those lesson activities to our students. So we can see this. Yes.
I'm sorry. Once a student completes a list, can they replay the list again?
When a student completes a list, they can replay the list again. So it's like a set of practice activities, so they can play it as many times as they want or as they need to. And then you could follow up with one of the assessment activities to test those skills as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So in our groups, that's just one way to add those different lesson activities and have students collaborate in there. From a student perspective, if they were to be in the group as well, and I'll show you the editing ability. You can add, they do need an email. That's the way that you would add students to your group. So this would work really well for your older students. I know a lot of schools limit email for the younger grades. So for our older students, this would probably work best for them. But you have the ability to assign privileges. So right now I have everyone who is a member. When you are a member in a group, you can only browse and play the lesson activities. So I could be the administrator of it and then have all of my students just as members. So you can see I took one student off. That student's no longer, oops, I want that student back in there. Or I can also assign admin privileges. So the admins can manage the lesson activities and invite new members. Now, if I had my students in this, chances are I'm probably not going to want them to be part of it. I just want them to play the lesson activities. So I would remove that privilege of being an admin to it. And then those students can now be part of that particular group. And they'll have access to play all of those lesson activities set up in my group. And if at any point as an admin, I wanted to go delete some of the activities and bring in a new set, I have the ability to add that and do that as well. So those are some ways that you can provide a little bit of differentiation and build in those scaffolds to help with your students with certain needs.
Danielle?
Yes.
Sorry, another question. Do you have any ideas of how to provide differentiation for English language learners?
Yes. So, and I actually will show with this one. So with ELL students, one of the really great features that we have, I'm going to go and edit this lesson. Having the ability for any activity that has this tile card. So when I say tile, it refers to like the squares that you would use. So with that tile, we have the ability to bring in not just pictures as I had showed before, but we also can bring in videos. So, and I'll share that in a moment, but we have the ability to also record sound. So this would be really great. This particular lesson I borrowed from one of my former colleagues who was working on R control with IR words. And then I took all of her content and I just modified it with some different graphics and videos. So thank you, Danielle, for that. So for my ELL students, what I could do with this particular activity is I could record that sound. So if I were doing vocabulary or just reinforcing really any word that I wanted them to hear in addition to being able to read it, I can record the sound. You are given up to 15 seconds of time to record sound. So this one, you can can see we're reading the words. So I would record dirt, D-I-R-T. And then I can save that sound. And now my student, when they play the lesson activity and they flip over the card, so now I have that audio added in as an extra support for those students. With this particular lesson activity, one of the new things that I discovered is that we can actually add video to the background of our lessons. So I'm actually going to go from scratch to do that. So I'm going to go back to my lesson activities and show you how you can add in little video clips. So this works with full-length video. So I added a 3-minute video to one lesson activity. I wouldn't suggest adding something of such length, but if you could find like a fun way to do that, go for it. I trust that you'd be able to figure out what your students would need. I just didn't have a video that really would make sense to do. So I'm going to use cards just because the squares are a little bit bigger, a little easier to see. Hop my group. And I'm going to change the background. So let's say I have my task here. I have the ability to change my background. So I'm going to preface this by saying when I found out that we could do this, I had a total geek moment where I got super, super excited and I just started making lots of little video clips and adding them in. And I just did that simply by creating little Google drawings and then uploading those drawings individually to create, and I never know if it's pronounced GIF or GIF, and my middle school students would probably say I'm saying it the wrong way anyway. But I just uploaded that into a program to create little GIF animations and then saved those as MP4s. So for that, I'm going to pull up a couple. So I'm pulling just from my computer itself. And let me find my little videos. So I did one with alligators. And now I have that little moving picture. I can make that a full screen. And then I'll show you also if I were to do a longer video. So I could see this actually being really useful if you were doing an instruction with your cards and you wanted your students on one to have the how-to portion of maybe doing a math problem or the steps that they need to complete, having that going in one particular part of the video, and then in the next card, the problems that you would like your students to solve. So then they would have that as that extra support. All right, and let me grab one from my desktop. I'm trying to find a video that does have sound. So this is a little MP4 movie. This one's about 3 minutes in length. Because this is a bigger file, it is going to take just a little bit longer to load, but I will try and be patient and give it its time to go. But you can have it, it is a bigger file, so it is taking a little bit longer to go. But there we go. Usually just as I'm about to give up, it starts. So same thing, this particular video would be playing. My students can make that full screen. I'm not sure if you're hearing the sound or not, but there's the video going. Okay, I didn't think so. But there's the video going as well. So, and then you could do this on either side of the card. So, and then flip the card over. Whatever's on the background would be there as well. So I was really excited to discover that part. I think it's just a fun new feature, another way to add in that extra support for your kiddos. Right, so at this time, I've kind of shown quite a bit of different ways to differentiate your lesson activities, to add in those additional scaffolds and supports. If there are any questions about what I've demonstrated or anything else Snowflake or Snow.Live related, I'll give you some time to ask Jack, and he can relay those over to me.
So we don't have any questions coming in right now. So as we give a couple of minutes of wait time,
sure.
I'm going to say, first of all, thanks, Danielle, for once again sharing your expertise with us.
my nerdiness, I get so excited about it.
Well, the other day we found out about the video on the back of the cards, and we were going back and forth, and we've gotten so excited over this. So we would like to welcome any of you. If you have any questions, please feel free to type those in the question box now. If not, please remember my email is jr@nuitec.com, jr@nuitec.com. If there are any topics that you would like us to cover, please feel free to email me the topics and we will try to set something up to cover those. And in addition, if there's anything that you have any questions about as far as distance and remote learning right now, feel free to ask. And if we can help you out with some other stuff, we will do that as well. So I don't think so thank you, Diane. She said, as always, your presentation was amazing, Danielle. I can't speak. Thank you very much. We appreciate that. We really do enjoy doing these things for you guys. I mean, I enjoy signing on and watching Danielle do them for you. So we really love having the contact with our customers out there, and we hope that we can do stuff to make your life just a little bit easier. If we can help you out, we're happy and excited to do that. And that's why when I say email me with ideas, seriously, if you have ideas, email me and we'll do our best to meet your needs. But if we don't have any other questions, I don't want to keep people. I know that your time is limited, so we want to respect that. And we, again, thank you very much. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Danielle, thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us.
Everyone have a wonderful evening.
Bye.
Bye-bye.